Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another to be released video. As you know, if you follow me at the beginning of each month, I look at the new releases and I pick a couple, 4, 5, 6 that I personally found interesting and then I share them with you. So TBR for the purpose of this video, as you know, means to be released. And this is a sort of a special edition of my monthly TBR video because August is Women in Translation Month. And so I thought I give you the choices of new releases, exclusively translated literature written by women, not necessarily translated by women, but written by women. And before I start with the books, I also want to draw your attention, if you are interested in Women in Translation Month, to a couple of links or websites, which I will leave down below. And especially I want to draw your attention to the not very well-known Warwick Prize for Women in Translation, hosted and established by Warwick University. I'll leave a link to the prize's website as well, and also to the list of about 150 titles, I think, that are eligible for the prize. So if you're looking for translated fiction, go click on the link. You will have a PDF file with all the titles, the country that the author is from, the translator. So I find that price highly underestimated, unfortunately, and I would like to promote it a little bit. So go check it out, and I'm sure you'll find titles that interest you. And as always, we start off with literary fiction. Also for this special edition, translated female authors. And the first book is from Russia, Margarita Kemlin's novel Klotzfog, first published in Russia in 2009, and it will be published in the translation by Lisa Hayden at the end of August. Margarita Kemlin was a Jewish-Ukrainian author, and Klotzfog is her most famous book. Unfortunately, Kemlin died pretty young, the age of 55, in 2015. Klotzfog is a first-person narration about Maya Klotzfog. So Klotzfog is her last name. It's about the Jewish experience after World War II in the 1950s and 60s. Maya spent the war years in exile in Kazakhstan, then returned to Kiev, and she tells us her life. And from what I understand from the blurb, the book combines the personal experience of Maya, who is quite an extraordinary woman, not per se likable as far as I understood, but it combines her life experience with the broader political life in the Soviet Union, and especially focusing on what it means to live as a Jew in the Ukrainian community, Soviet Union, 1950s and 1960s. I thought it sounded really interesting, so I requested a copy from NetGalley, which I thankfully got, and I'm really excited to read it. I've never heard of this author. I think she is not very well known outside of the Ukraine, and it's fantastic that even if it took 10 years, but that she's now translated into English. So my first pick, Klotzfog by Margarita Kemlin. The next book is from Chinese author Wang Anyi, called Fu Ping, and it is translated from the Chinese by Howard Goldblatt and will be published in a couple of days on the 6th of August. Wang Anyi is one of the most renowned contemporary Chinese authors. She was born 1954. And you might have heard of her or maybe even read her because her novel, The Song of Everlasting Sorrow, was on the Man Booker International shortlist 10 years ago. Fu Ping is a novel set in Shanghai in the first years of the Republic, so in the 1950s. And we follow this young woman's lives, Fu Ping, who is brought from the countryside to Shanghai to marry the grandson of Nai Nai. But when Fu Ping arrives in the city, she develops a mind of her own. That's what I understood from the blurb. So the novel focuses on the life of this woman coming from a lower class family in the countryside and then being chosen, quote unquote, to marry a well-off man, and her exploration of her life in Shanghai and how she tries to find a way of her own. I really enjoyed The Song of Everlasting Sorrow when I read it a long time ago, but even though Wang Anye is, like I said, a really well-known Chinese author, I sort of forgot about her, like it sometimes happens. Shame on me. So I'm really glad that I came across this new book of hers, Fu Ping, which I obviously had to pick for the August TBR. The next book is quite something special, and I don't think it will appeal to everybody, but I've thought it was so fascinating that I had to include it, and that's My Mother's Mother's Mother, South African writings by women in Afrikaans from the 1652-ish until contemporary times. And the book is the writings are collected and edited and translated from the Afrikaans by two scholars of Leiden University, Pieter van Beek and Annemarie van Niekerk. It's a tome. It's almost 1,000 pages. It will be published mid-August, and like I said, I'm well aware that this is not appealing to everybody. I mean, the size alone. But I thought this project is fascinating. What they did is they collected writings and stories from 70 different women in South Africa from the early times, like I said, in 1700, the 17th century, I'm sorry, until today. And the range of this collection is just baffling me. I think it's fantastic that Leiden University Press undertook this project and publishes it. And again, I'm aware not everybody would want to read almost 1,000-page tome of 70 different Afrikaans writers, female voices, but I thought it was fascinating, and for that reason alone, I had to include it in the August TBR. The next book on the TBR, August TBR list is from Germany, and that is Julie Z's book Leere Herzen, translated into English by John Cullen into Empty Hearts, which will be published 20th of August. Julie Z is a very well-established contemporary German author. I have to say, the book Empty Hearts received mixed reviews, but I thought I include it anyway because I'm interested in reading it. It was published in Germany in 2017, but I never gotten around to picking it up. Empty Hearts is set in Germany in the near future, 2025, and the right-wing populist government rules the country. So it's after Trump, and Brexit is a fact. France also exited the European Union, and we follow a businesswoman, Britta, carries my first name. That's not the reason I picked this book, by the way, who runs a business, a prevention of suicide business. At least that's the legitimate front of her business. But behind that is a secretive and not a legitimate business called The Bridge, in which Britta and her math genius co-worker supply suicide bombers for suicide attacks. That premise alone sounds controversial, and like I said, the book had gotten quite some mixed reviews, also on Goodreads, but also in the German press. But still, I have a sort of a soft spot for Julie Z, even though I don't like all her work, but she has this edginess to her that I think is worthwhile exploring, and that's why I included Empty Hearts in the August TBR. And we end the August TBR with another sci-fi novel, 2 in a row, and that is Yoko Ogawa's new novel, The Memory Police, translated from the Japanese by Stephen Snyder, and it will be published mid-August. The book is an older book by Yoko Ogawa because it was published in Japan in 1994. You probably know Yoko Ogawa, a contemporary Japanese author, from The Housekeeper and the Professor, which still makes the rounds on BookTube, even though it has been published in the English translation some, I think, 10 years ago. And this new book, even though it's an older book, is set on a remote island, and we follow an unnamed protagonist, a young female novelist, who is trying to save her editor. On this island, memory is heavily policed, that is to say, erased. And people whose memories can't be erased are persecuted and killed. And the editor of this young female novelist is one of those people who can't erase his memory, or his memories can't be erased by the memory police. So our protagonist hides her editor, and the novel takes off from there. It's I saw this book on BookTube. I think Russell from Ink and Paper blog really liked it. Jacqueline from 6 Minutes for Me has read an arc and also really enjoyed it. And from what I understood, I didn't want to see too much or hear too much about the plot, but if you've read The Housekeeper and the Professor or any other work by Yoko Ogawa, you know that she is quite allegorical in her style and in her language. But what drew me to this particular book was obviously the premise. I love sci-fi books that explore these kind of topics. So I'm very much looking forward to The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa when it comes out mid-August. So these were my pick for this special edition of the TBR, a video in August, translated work by female authors only. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know whether you participate in Women in Translation Month and whether you have any books, translated books by female authors that you are particularly looking forward to reading in August. And I'll see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.